What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how 3 Pokemon will get better in time. So you might be asking yourself the question, well, how's that possible if it's going to be the same Pokemon? It's going to be in regards to a concept known as power creeping. This is something that I became aware of after watching a video by a YouTuber of the name Swag Tips. So by the way, shout out to Swag Tips, definitely a cool guy. I was fortunate enough to meet him in person. So if you do want to check out his channel, a link will be in the description. But anyways, so a power creep. It's the idea that a Pokemon could theoretically get better than what it is now just because of unlocking a new move. So we have seen this for quite some time with Community Day. A perfect example of this would be Tyranitar, gaining the move Smackdown. All of a sudden, it puts it into the #1 spot from a rock type. Secondly, you have a Pokemon like Venusaur, gaining the move Frenzy Plant, pushes it up to that #1 spot from a grass typing. So keep in mind, that's Community Day. But what we saw recently unlocked a completely new set of potential updates. We saw Zapdos get the move Thunder Shock. And although that didn't propel it to the #1 spot, it actually made it better than what Zapdos was in the past. So this is going to be the idea of just having an exclusive move potentially added on in the future that you can only get during a certain time period. Basically, the Pokemon power creeps itself, and it is able to be better than any other previous version of itself. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and be talking about 3 today that are going to be absolute monsters. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the episode. In the background, I will have footage from Pokemon Snap. If you do remember this game, be sure to let me know in the comments section below. Let's go ahead and get into the first Pokemon. That is Kyogre. With a max EP of 4,074, Kyogre is a pure water type Pokemon. We'll briefly talk about the stats in the current ideal moveset. So if you check out the stats, Kyogre is actually going to be the #1 overall ranked Pokemon in Pokemon Go. Also tied with Groudon. And if you check out the stats, you will see why. Its worst stat is just going to be its stamina at 182, ranking out at 49th. But everything else is absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the current ideal moveset. That is Waterfall and Hydro Pump. So this is something that has been ideal for quite some time. As soon as Waterfall got introduced, it became the new best water type moveset. But just to give some comparison to see how good Origin Pulse is going to be, I wanted to go ahead and compare the numbers for you. So if you check that out on the DPS times EPS, you will see that Origin Pulse has a number of 99 versus Hydro Pump at 51. So if the actual stats that are already in game for Origin Pulse stay the same, this would mean that it's roughly going to be twice as good as Hydro Pump. And Hydro Pump is already super good. So I could see there being some type of nerf basically happening to Origin Pulse. But regardless, if it ends up being better, this is going to be a Pokemon that once it gets this exclusive move, it's actually going to be better than all of the Kyogres that you have. But don't worry, we do have a plan that we will talk about at the end of the video. Let's go ahead and talk about the second Pokemon. And that is Groudon. So go ahead and take a look at Groudon. It's going to also have a max EP of 4,074 and is a pure ground type Pokemon. Once again, taking a look at the stats, it's actually going to be exactly the same as Kyogre. So let's go ahead and move on to the ideal moveset. If you have been following the channel for the last couple of months, you will know that I do like ground typing, but I also think that ground type moves have absolutely been robbed in Pokemon Go. When you're talking about Earthquake being literally the best ground type and its DPS EPS is only at 40, that means that ground type moves are not going to be that competitive. That's why you see Groudon being used a lot with Solar Beam instead of Earthquake. But beyond that, let's go ahead and talk about the comparison. So when we put Earthquake up to Precipitous Blades, go ahead and check that out. So Precipitous Blades and Origin Pulse are going to have the same DPS EPS. So in this case, it's actually going to be more than twice as good as Earthquake. Absolutely fantastic. So personally for myself, out of all 3 of these Pokemon / moves, I'm thinking that I'm most excited about Precipitous Blades for Groudon. This means that it's going to be competitive from that ground typing, even though it's already the best ground type. Having that extra ground move that's going to dominate well beyond the next best move is something that I'm personally going to be very excited about. Let's go ahead and move into the third and final, and that is going to be Mewtwo. Max AP of 3,982. Mewtwo is a pure Psychic type Pokemon. Of course, Mewtwo is the best Psychic type attacker in the game. You can go ahead and check out the stats and you will see why. The only little bit of a downfall is going to be a little bit lower of a defense, but in all honesty, when you're talking about raids, it just basically gets past that. So something kind of weird with Mewtwo is going to be in relation to its moveset. Because it has the charge move Psychic, it ends up not being quite as useful as it could be. Now, because it does have such great stats, it still performs extremely well, but what I mean by that is if it had a better moveset, it would clearly perform so much better than just having a Psychic. So, that's going to be where Psystrike comes into play. So Psystrike, go ahead and check that out. The DPS EPS moves up to 45. So of course this is not as big of a deal as Origin Pulse or Precipitous Blades, but it is going to be an improvement from Psychic. So you might be asking yourself the question, well yeah, sure, having Psystrike would be great, but how does that compare to the best Psychic type moveset? So I thought it would be smart to go ahead and put it up against Future Sight, which is going to be the current best Psychic type moveset in the game. As you can see, Psystrike is basically going to close the gap between Psychic and Future Sight. It's not going to be better, but in all honesty, Mewtwo doesn't need all of the help to get that much better just because it has an incredibly high attack stat. So let's go ahead and get into the final portion of this video. And that's going to be what the heck do we do with these Pokemon? Currently, Kyogre, Mewtwo, and Groudon lead from their own typing. So you might be saying, well, if they're already the best, should I put a bunch of Stardust in them? Should I put a bunch of rare candies into them? And I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a strategy. I personally think that what you should do is not just invest solely in the current Pokemon that you have for Kyogre, Mewtwo, and Groudon, but basically think about all of these Pokemon like a piggy bank. And what you should be doing is entering in some rare candy into these Pokemon, or if you end up catching them from some raids, basically have all of your resources ready, but not necessarily power them up. Of course, if you already have 3, 4, 5, 6 powered up, I would definitely recommend you to just basically stockpile candy, have them ready, because once they become exclusive and they get these incredible moves, Origin Pulse, Psystrike, and Precipitous Blades, all you have to do at that point is just simply go ahead and power it up then. I'm just basically saying, don't stop yourself from powering these up now, but once you get a good solid team, I would recommend you to actually go ahead and set aside a little bit of resources for these future Pokemon, because they will absolutely outperform their current moveset. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy this episode. I hope that it is helpful. I think that it's very good to talk about the future and just kind of know what could be happening so that you don't end up, spending too much Stardust, too much resources, and then end up regretting it once something like a better exclusive move comes out. Anyways, I want to go ahead and end on a question of the day. So when you take a look at these Pokemon, what is the most exciting to you? Was it Kyogre? Was it Groudon? Or was it Mewtwo? Be sure to let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you next time.
Hit me like a tidal wave. She's the body after shot. Hit me like a